Hey guys, it's Jonathan from Bullet Motorsports. Thanks for tuning into our podcast where we talk about everything that moves fast and looks cool, from planes, boats, ATCs, power sports, the whole 9 yards. Today we're going to be talking about how to buy a car safely and the tips and tricks to look out for so you don't get scammed. In today's episode, we're going to talk about the tips and tricks to look out for when buying a driver quality classic car. We're going to talk about what to look out for in regards to the body, mechanicals, and then when you take it for a test drive. So if you guys missed it, the last podcast we did was in regards to how to buy a car sight unseen online and to keep you safe. So click on the link below so you guys can get that information before going to this next step of traveling to look at that car and inspecting it yourself. So you've got your cash saved up and you're gonna go look at your dream ride. I wanna make sure that you guys don't get taken advantage of and you buy at the right price point for the quality. Today we're gonna be talking about a driver quality classic. So we're gonna go over the steps to help you make the right decision so you don't buy a project while spending the money on a driver quality classic. These steps that I'm gonna show you are gonna help you do that. Let's talk about the three types of sellers you're going to encounter on this adventure. You're going to have the private individual, you're going to have a dealership, and you're going to have an auction. All right, we're going to start off with the private seller, and I'm going to tell you the pros and cons as we go through this list. So private, you're going to have no recourse for the purchase. So you can drive out of the neighborhood basically, and if it breaks, you call them. Doesn't matter. It's your car now. The pros would be that they're going to have a lot of documentation for the vehicle, hopefully, if they've had it for a long time. They're going to have service records for it, and that's a really good point if you're buying a car so you already know what's done to it. The other item would be you can get a potentially better deal from a private individual. Say they're going through a divorce or they're having a fire sale. Maybe they lost their job. You don't know what's going on, but sometimes you can offer a lesser amount and they'll be able to do it. They don't have a brick and mortar storefront like us here at Bullet Motorsports. The next one's going to be a dealer. You're going to have more choices from a dealership because they're going to have more cars. Normally they're going to have more photos compared to a private seller, so they're going to have close to 100 photos if they're a good dealership. They're also going to have prior sales reviews, so you're going to be able to see if they're going to be a good seller or if they have a bad track record, so you can steer clear. They're going to be licensed and bonded by their state, so if you have an issue, you can actually contact the state, the motor vehicle department, and complain, and they will file a claim on that dealership. Another thing is you look at their overall business track record, so you can find them on Facebook or you can look up their Yelp reviews, whatever, and you can see if they are a good seller. Third seller would be an auction house. So that's normally 80% dealers and 20% private individuals that want to bring it to an auction house so they can retail it without dealing with the public, which would be you. You cannot test drive those cars. So you want to make sure that if you do go to the auction, you're going to at least hear it start up when they bring it towards the auction block. So that's another thing that you have to really think about or build into your price point, that maybe it needs a transmission or maybe it needs a motor. You also have to verify the information on the cue card. The seller can write whatever they want. The auction house can't protect every single thing written on that piece of paper because that's not their car. They're going based on what the seller is giving them in regards to information. You have to do your due diligence to actually make sure that it is numbers matching or it is not numbers matching. Auctions are a great place to buy because of the excitement. You get to see a whole bunch of different vehicles all in one place. That would be more so a purchasing experience if you're going to buy at auction. So if you want your family or someone that's close to you to enjoy that feeling when you're buying it, that's definitely the place to go. Just realize that sometimes you get caught up in that excitement. You got the ba-ba-da-ba going on, you have cameras in front of you. You want to make sure that you're still making the right decision on your purchase price and what you're looking at. All right, it's time to get your hands dirty and do some investigating. I want you guys to bring these three items. So you're going to bring a magnet, like a soft magnet that goes on a refrigerator. You're going to bring a flashlight so you can see underneath the car or look in the engine compartment around there to see if there's any oil leaks. A notepad so you can make notes because the amount of information I'm going to give you right now, you're going to want to write down everything so you can make a good decision before you make an offer on the car or on the spot. We're going to start off with the exterior. You've arrived at the location where the car is. I want you guys to do a quick walk around to the car and see if there's anything that really pops out at you, if there's any dents or dings, any visible imperfections. Do you visibly see rust? Are the door gaps uneven? These are things you want to make note of as you walk around it. You're going to use your magnet. So I always check the corners by the wheels to see if it sticks. You just walk around and you softly put it on there. And if it falls off, that means that there's filler or fiberglass in place so it doesn't stick. If it sticks, you're pretty much good to go. Also, if it's a nicer car, a paint meter would be a great option. You could buy those on Amazon for pretty cheap. 3 to 5 mils is the average paint thickness. So that's the thickness between the metal and the paint, and that's what it's reading. So if it's a more expensive car, I would do that because it's a big deal for painted panels because you can't tell. As you walk around the vehicle, you're gonna look at the glass and trim work and see if there's any pitting or if the glass is cracked, because it's hard to find vintage glass nowadays. You're gonna look inside of the wheel wells to see if there's rust or missing bolts. So you're gonna take the flashlight and look in there and see if you see anything that's popping out at you. Another thing is to look at the mirrors and trim. So go around and shake the mirrors and trim and see if it's loose, because if this stuff's starting to look loose, there's gonna probably be more problems around the whole entire vehicle. Body gaps, I've gone over this already, but you want to make sure that the gaps are even on both sides. That could either be that they've replaced panels or that there's damage to the frame, making the gap shorter on one side. Another thing to do is open the doors and close them and see how the hinges work and see if the doors drop. Is it hard to close the door? That's probably a tall tale sign that there is a structural issue, or maybe the pins are damaged in the door. Open the trunk and pull up the mat to see if there's rust, even if there's water. So maybe the guy washed it before you got there, guy or girl washed it, and you'll see like a rust stain, or underneath the mat, you'll see the rust stain. Next step is going to be the interior. So we're gonna look at the interior. We're gonna open all the doors and trunk. I know we've looked at the trunk already, and we're gonna see if there's any water intrusion. So you could feel the carpet or see if there's stains. You're gonna check the door edges for rust. So when you open up the door, you're gonna look underneath there, and right underneath all the rubber, if there's rubber visible on the door, see if there's rust or really thick and there's no lines. So that means that they've used filler to fill it in so you don't see the rust. You're gonna check your door panels for fitment issues, check all your window controls and cranks. Sometimes these things don't work. I mean, this is not something that you're gonna wanna run away from, but it is expensive to fix. How's the overall interior condition? Is the dash cracked? Are the door panels damaged? Do you wanna look at all of that as well? And check the headliner and see if the light is actually illuminating when you open up the door. If it's not, ask the seller if you can pop the plastic off and take a look in there. If there's a light bulb in there that's not burnt out and the lights aren't turning on, there's probably an electrical issue or just a fuse, but more than likely it's an electrical issue. Another one that a lot of people miss out on is looking underneath the dash. So just take your head and look under there with the flashlight. If you see a cobble of wires, you see things unplugged, run away. When you're inside, you're also going to want to check all the components like the radio, the blower motor, and if it's air conditioned equipped, you're going to want to check the AC, pull the lights and make sure that the lights are illuminated as well, and any other features that it may have. So cruise control, when you go for the test drive, check that out too. Okay, so if everything's looking good so far and you haven't run away from the seller, you're going to go into the driveline checkup. So that we haven't started the vehicle yet. We're going to just check the oils, the fluids, see if there's any leaking around it, and also crawl underneath it to see if there's rust on the frame or the bushings are cracked. So those are all things you want to look out for. Don't think that a shiny turtle shell exterior is not hiding a lot of old parts and a lot of rust. So you're going to want to do that. You're going to crawl underneath it and use your flashlight and see if there's any flaking. Surface rust is fine. Underneath the body, you're going to want to make sure that where the body mounts are, if it has a body on frame, make sure that it's not rusted out. We have a really good example outside. It's a Mini Cooper right now. So also when you're underneath the car, look at the pinch weld. So that's what you're going to see that runs down the side of the vehicle. When you're looking right underneath it, under the door, make sure those are nice and clean and not rusty or not crushed in. You're going to want to look at the inner tires and see if there's any lubricants or grease coming out from there, because that could be a sign for brake fluid leaking, or the hubs are going bad, so there's fluids coming out from the actual seals. Check the tire date codes. This is not a make or break deal, but if you're going to drive it a far distance, make sure that they're at least 8 years old or 8 years young. All right, let's pop the hood on this beautiful ride. What you're gonna do is make sure that the engine's cold. You wanna make sure that the manifolds are not hot. You don't ever wanna test a vehicle when it's warm, because that could hide sounds and that could hide smoke. Check all the fluids. So you're gonna check your oil. And when you're checking your oil, what you wanna do is look at the consistency and color. So if it's like a brown, a see-through brown, transparent, that means that the oil's basically fresh. If it's really dark, that means it's not fresh. And if it's milky, run away, because that means there's coolant mixing in from the head gasket, most likely causing water to intrude into your oil, which is not good for your bearings or the engine itself. Second thing you're going to check is coolant level. So check the coolant, make sure it doesn't just have water in it, because if you're going to ship this to a cold climate or it's going to get cold, you could crack your block or pop your freeze plugs out. You're going to check your transmission fluid as well. Smell it. If it smells burnt, run away again. But if it looks nice and pink and it's at the right level, you're good to go. All right, so everything checked out under the hood. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna start up the car and make sure that there's no funny sounds. So if you hear knocking from the motor, like ticking, that's probably an internal issue. I would go away. Also, you're gonna check and see if there's any smoke coming from the tailpipes. If it's a black smoke, that means it's just running rich, which can be resolved. If it's white, that's coolant. And if it's blue, that means the rings are going. So you're gonna wanna look at the actual exhaust tips as it's running, have someone rev it and look out back and see what's going on. When you have the hood open, you're gonna make sure that the motor does sound right. As I said before, you're gonna look at it and see if it's shaking. That means there's most likely a misfire or a bad spark plug or spark plug wires or a coil. If there's any smoke coming from the oil fill, so I always do this when I look at classic cars, open the oil fill cap, and if you see smoke coming out of it, that's called blow-by. That means the rings are not seated, and that's a big issue. That means overhaul for the whole motor, so run away. While you're sitting inside there of the car, getting away from the motor, sitting inside the car, put it in gear and make sure it doesn't bang into forward or reverse. You hold your foot firmly on the brake pedal, put it into forward. Same thing with the reverse, and if it bangs into the gear, that means that there's a motor mount or a U-joint issue. And that's it for turning on your car. Let's go for a ride. Since we're at this stage right now, that means that everything's checking out and you're going for a test drive. First thing you're gonna do is get inside it again, start it up, make sure your brake pressure is very good and safe, because you're gonna take a random car out for a test drive. You're gonna turn the wheels lock to lock as well before going for the test drive to make sure that the power steering pump is operating properly and it's not squealing, which would indicate either a leak or loose belts. And then you're gonna go for a ride. Going around 10 miles per hour is my start for a test drive. I apply the brakes to make sure that it's not going to pull to the left or the right. Also, this gives me security in case there is a failure. We can still stop it by putting it in park or using the emergency brake if the emergency brake works. Next thing you're going to do is find a nice quiet road. And if it's an automatic transmission, you're going to want to make sure that it shifts through all the gears properly and get it to 45 miles an hour. And give it a 3/4 throttle. That should allow it to do a kick down. And if it doesn't do a kick down, there's an issue with the transmission in regards to the adjustment of the kick down or the valve body itself. When you're driving it at speed, do you hear any funny sounds in the rear end? So it might sound like birds or like chirping or grinding. That would signify a rear end issue. So that's something that's going to be expensive to fix. Probably, it depends on the car, but it could be from $500 to $2,000. Also, acceleration. So you're gonna slowly roll into the throttle if it's carbureted or fuel injected and see if there's any misfire or a dead spot. That could be the accelerator pump is bad, or there's a tear in it and it's not allowing the fuel to properly squirt into the carburetor, or there's a misfire issue with your fuel injection system. Once you're back from your test drive, what I always do is turn the vehicle off, let it sit for 20 seconds and try to turn it back on. If it doesn't start, you have a hot start issue, which would mean the carburetor has an issue, or you have a timing issue or a bad ground issue because the ground got hot near the motor and now it's not allowing the motor to start. All right, you guys have gotten back for your ride. Hopefully everything checked out. And if it did, I hope you guys are making a great deal on this purchase. If anything like this popped out, engine noise, engine smoke, major leaks, rust, like a lot of rust, run away. Otherwise, make the deal happen, put that dream ride in your driveway, and enjoy life. If you guys need help with how to purchase this vehicle, we've made a podcast before this, and you can click on the link down here, and it's going to explain the purchasing process, so how to do the paperwork, the whole 9 yards. Thanks for watching the video. Hopefully this video helped you make a good decision on buying a classic car and maybe taught you something in regards to what to look out for. If you don't want to go through the hassle of doing the inspection yourself or looking for cars that may be a problem, I know some guys that can help you out. Also, if you have any good ideas for our podcast, please leave a comment below, or any thoughts in regards to this video, leave a comment below. Thanks again. You guys have a great day. See you later.